Well, brothers and sisters, it is a joy for us to be here with you. Thankful for your prayers and support, your love, always, your hospitality. And so with the Lord's help this morning, I hope to give you a little snapshot of the last few months of the work in Costa Rica and what we've been doing and laboring to, and also to solicit your prayers for the work that is happening there. And so, as you know, brevity is not my spiritual gift, so I'm going to try my best this morning just to give you, though, an idea of what's been happening these last few months at the Reformed Baptist Church of Rica, Costa Rica. And God has been very gracious to us since January. I gave a report here in December, and so we kind of, at that moment, I gave a bit of an update September, October. We moved last September, for those of you who don't know, and so we've been there for 9 months now, and back just a few weeks, renewing our visas, visiting our supporting churches. But here is a recent snapshot with many of the members. Not everyone was able to be there. This was actually the night that we voted whether or not that I would be one of their pastors there in Rica. And so God was very kind and gracious to confirm that vote. Obviously you know that and are aware of that. But let's start with January, just a few things. And we had some wonderful visitors that came down to see us as well. You may recognize some familiar faces in these photos. But really after we returned back to Costa Rica at the end of December after a trip here, we really hit the ground running beginning in January and started really January's conference season. Pastors Conference, which is held annually the third Saturday every January at the Reformed Baptist Church of San Jose, where Pastor Alexander Leon ministers, as well as Pastor Randall Reyes. That's Pastor Randall, and this is Pastor Alex. And yeah, Judah even got to attend with me at the Pastors Conference, so we had a great time. But wonderful time of fellowship. We had many pastors visiting. I can't remember how many countries, at least 6 different countries, and men from various places, from Guatemala to El Salvador to Nicaragua, even to a couple brothers from Chile who were working in a church plant 8 hours away from the capital there. And so it was a tremendous blessing to be able to be a part of that. And Pastor Jeff Johnson, whom I do believe you guys remember from Grand Rapids, was there ministering the Word. And we had a wonderful time of fellowship and wonderful time of engaging one another. And this also led to another conference that I was able to preach at, along with Pastor Jeff and Pastor Eduardo Flores, another pastor in Costa Rica. And every year there's also in January an ecclesiology conference, a conference on the church, the doctrine of the church. And so Pastor Eduardo was preaching on the church covenant, and we had a wonderful time with the brethren there. And so God was very kind to meet with us. This is the church in Miramar. If you're not familiar with the setting, about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of us. Well, it's about 4 hours now with all the traffic and road work. And so about 100 miles south of us is where this church is located. Pastor Josue Vargas is laboring there. And so this is something you can continue to be praying for, especially every January as we seek to labor together with these conferences, especially within the association that's in Costa Rica now, with the Pastors Conference and also the Conference on the Doctrine of the Church. And usually we end up having some kind of special event or conference with all the speakers that are coming down at our own local church in Rica. But this was a special occasion in January, as we had Pastor Greg and Trish with us for this very special occasion of my ordination in January. Pastor Jeff Johnson was there as well, and he preached in Sunday school with Brother Ezram translating. And then I had the privilege of translating for Pastor Greg in the evening through that. But it was just a time, a momentous moment for the church in Rica, the first time the church has had a plurality of elders. Although she is now 7 years old, it was constituted 7 years ago. The Lord confirmed that, and we had Pastor Andres from Bagaces, Pastor Jeff Johnson, Pastor Alexander Leon, Pastor Adrian, and then Pastor Greg were all there to be a part of the ordination. So we were rejoicing and thankful for the Lord's confirmation and also just the ability to begin the ministry there, pastoring the group of 27 souls now that has been entrusted to me and to Pastor Adrian there. And they also gave me a nice little plaque. So I'll let you translate it for yourself. You can ask me later. But it was a very momentous moment, and just we're very thankful for the Lord's hand there. We also had a good trip and visit with Pastor Greg and Trish, and we were able to visit various places and just enjoy some sweet time of fellowship. And so if you do come down, we will definitely show you the beaches. And so they're wonderful down there, not too far from us. But this leads us into February, and really kind of a theme that I want to set before you, and a recurring theme, and I want to touch on this at the end of my time this morning. But as we began our project, for lack of a better term, of Bible distribution and evangelism, and what our goal was once a month, dedicate 1 hour on a Saturday, going home to home with the intention of gifting a Bible and also sharing the gospel. Now, there are 20,000 homes in Rica, so we estimate at the current rate it's probably going to be 40 years before we can complete this, but we know it's a long-term effort and goal. And the goal also is not just to get as many Bibles as quick as possible into homes, it's to have genuine gospel conversations that lead at times to confrontations, because many are Roman Catholic. And one of the most common questions that I get, that I've heard, is they ask, is this a Catholic Bible or an evangelical Bible? And so I said, what's the difference? And they said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, you read it, and I'll come back, and you can tell me what the difference is. And so it's a lot of nominal Roman Catholicism, not a lot of knowledge of the Scriptures. But one thing that's been particularly impactful with this is when we're sharing the gospel, we open up these Bibles we're about to give to them, point here, this is what this says, and all of a sudden they see, okay, this is what the Word of God said. There's still a respect and a reverence within the culture for the Word of God, which we're thankful for. Now, also, as you know, February's tough months of winter, so we had Groundhog Day as well, and unfortunately we had 6 months of more winter that was given to us. I believe one night it got down to 68 for us, so we were struggling. But in all seriousness, the Lord was kind to us through the month of February. I was able to go and preach and visit with the brothers and sisters in the church in Bagaces, which they're 20 minutes south of us, so just as a reminder. This is where Pastor Andres Rodriguez labors along with his father. It's not a good picture of him, but his father labors there. They labor alongside together as co-elders. And there's a sweet testimony that happened. This sister, who is nearing 70 years of age, Pastor Andres and the church there have been doing Bible distribution as well throughout Bagaces. And she has been converted through this effort of getting a Bible in each home and sharing the gospel. She was actually an individual in the park, and they were sharing the gospel going forth, and the Lord opened her heart. And since that moment, which is probably a year and a half ago, she's been faithfully attending there. And then this past February was confirmed and brought into the membership. And one of the most beautiful things about this whole interaction and what the Lord has done in her life is the week after she thinks she was converted, she starts asking Pastor Andres, can I go evangelizing with you? And so immediately she wants to share the good news of Christ with all those, and she came out of Roman Catholicism as well. And so it was just a sweet and precious day to be able to go be with the saints that day. It was also my birthday, and unbeknownst to me, they had a cake ready. And just so you know, Costa Ricans love to have any excuse for cakes, coffee, any kind of food. And so I preached in the morning in Bagaces, and then in the evening I preached in Rica, and another cake was waiting on me. So, but we were very thankful and had some wonderful time throughout that week with the brethren. This is one of our deacons and one of the brothers from the church in Rica, and they had a wonderful trip. And we were able also to see a sloth in person in one of our trips that we took. But this leads us now to March, and March is the dry season. So we got up to 102, no rain since November, very hot and dry. And then on one of those first Lord's Day, in the Lord's kind but often perplexing providence, the electricity went out in our church. So we had to meet outside. And thankfully we do have shade, so we have a shaded area now. But what had happened was something with the breaker went wrong, and electricity surged, and we were out of power. And so we tried to think about generators, but it's really a hot box inside the church, and so it was hotter inside than actual outside. But the Lord sustained us. We were able to meet outside and continue the service there. And so we were very thankful to that we could continue to preach through. And I've been preaching through Jonah, and so one of those last sermons that I had preaching through the book of Jonah there. Also, we had some more visitors. You may recognize that logo. But there's Brother Stephen giving a report. And so what we did, Stephen and Alicia came down, as you know, and also Dave Schullery and his wife Dee came to visit for a couple weeks with us. And then I asked Stephen the first week to do a report in Sunday school on the church, how we could be praying for Emmanuel here, and just to help the congregation get another perspective from someone else, not just me, about what's going on in here. And also Stephen preached in the evening service, and the brethren were very encouraged and thankful for his ministry in the Word. And we also had an opportunity to hike some volcanoes. And so we went up into the rainforest, and they will all remember, none of them here are here to attest to this, but how I told them it was a very flat hike, but it was a little more inclined than I remember. So we also saw some wildlife while we were there. So you have to be careful. You never know what you're going to encounter in Costa Rica. Just I think an eyelash pit viper is what it's called in English. Very venomous, but usually don't do anything if you don't get too close. But wonderful times of fellowship. You can see there's Brother Dave and Dee, and we're able to eat at our favorite restaurant, which is Don Fran, which is a restaurant that's operated by one of our deacons, and the best burgers in the world. And I'm biased, I know, but I think you would agree if you come. And then here is Brother Dave giving an update and a report on Providence and how we can be praying for them, although he didn't translate his into Spanish. So Ezra had to translate all of this. But it was a wonderful trip, very fruitful. And I'll just say here, we're so thankful when we do have visitors. It means the world to us, and it's so important even for the brothers and sisters, your brothers and sisters at the church in Ligredia. They're so thankful to get to know more individuals, to hear more, and also just to spend time. It's a very relational culture, and especially when they have members from other sister churches in various parts of the world, it's just an encouragement to them. And a lot of them speak English, and so don't let that ever be a hindrance. And if not, I'll translate for you if you ever come down. March was also beginning. Well, I started in February, my birthday. Harper's turned 11 at the end of March, and for her birthday, all she wanted was a new deck. And so we had a project, a family project that we were able to work on. It was more Mommy and Daddy's desire, but the kids helped. And then that leads us into April, continuing the last month of the dry season. May, usually the second week of May, begins the rainy season. And then we had Judah's birthday, turning 8. And we're very thankful for the Lord sustaining both of them, the years that He has, as well as my in-laws and Courtney's grandmother came down for a visit. And Courtney's grandmother is 80 years old, and so she came down. Just a wonderful testimony, encouragement. They are believers, and it was just encouraging to spend time with them and also for them to meet brothers and sisters there. And if some of you know the whole story of how we had to flee Nicaragua, my in-laws and Courtney's grandmother was also with us at that moment. So it was we're very thankful to the Lord for a more relaxing trip than that one. And so we waited a few weeks until they got here to have birthday celebration. And one of our friends made this wonderful piñata and by hand. And it was a very hot day, as you can see the sun blaring down. This leads us to May. And we were able to celebrate Courtney's birthday. So we have, my birthday's February, Harper's is March, Judah's is April, and Courtney's is May. So we're back to back to back. And we were able to go up into the cloud forest for a few days. Yes, we are wearing jackets. It's about 7,000 feet elevation here, about an hour and a half away from us, but a very different climate. Zip lines and all kinds of stuff here, and kids loved it. And we were able to get away for just a few nights. But we also had a trip from 3 pastors that are connected with Disciple of the Nations. Jimmy Winfrey, who is kind of the coordinator, for lack of a better word, director of the Latin American branch, and a very dear brother. He lived and served in Ecuador for almost 5 years, I believe 4 years. He's a pastor at a church in Louisville right now, and also a professor at Southern. And so I think I've got a picture of them here. 3 brothers, Pastor Ryan Wade, who pastors a church in Georgia, and Pastor Matt Kuntz, who's a pastor, I believe in St. Louis. Does that sound right? St. Louis. They came down, and then Jimmy and Matt lived in Ecuador together and served down there, and so they both spoke Spanish and were able to preach, and they had a little workshop on biblical leadership, and they just went through the book of 1st and 2nd Timothy, and it was a blessing to our congregation and also encouraging the Disciple of the Nations was able to come down, and they brought us a whole stack of Bibles, because what we're finding, I think you'll see it here, there's a stack of these Bibles that we have found. We were buying the economy paperback ones from the Mennonites in Costa Rica, and they were $6 a piece. They are $6 a piece. But what we were finding was the font was about 6 and you have the soft paperback that is not very durable, and so they weren't lasting, and people were saying they're having a hard time reading it. Do we have anything with bigger font? And so we found these Bibles, and I should have brought one with me. I don't think I have one, but similar to the Pew Bibles that are here. They're hardback, but they're 10-point font, and they're $7, at least not in Costa Rica, but on Amazon. And so we've been asking anybody who can come down to bring some for us. We do have the funds. Several churches and ministries have donated funds to be able to buy these, but the hardest aspect right now is getting them down because of the weight and just the size and the amount that we would like. I think we have about 50 left right now, and so, Lord willing, we're going to take some back if we have room. We'll probably solicit some help from some brothers who are going to visit us to bring more in August. But pray for that, just the logistical nature of that. We're even considering maybe talking with Equipping the Saints up here nearby about maybe getting a container or even a pallet, something like that. But we just need wisdom and help to do that. That's one of the hardest aspects. And you can get Amazon delivered in Costa Rica now, but basically you have to pay import fees and taxes, and it just wouldn't be worth it at that point. And so this was one of the opportunities we did have, though, to go out to do Bible distribution and evangelism. You can see the brothers from DTN were here with us, and it was really nice because them speaking Spanish, we could divide into, I think we had, 4 different groups that day, maybe even more, depending on who came. And that was a particular day that I won't be quick to forget because of just the way that we had some wonderful interactions. We were able to distribute 21 Bibles that day and have at least 6, if I recall correctly, significant gospel conversations where there was significant interest, and it was just one after one. We were actually at the point of finishing, and we're concluding going to this local supermarket, and the owner wanted a Bible, and then like 5 people in a row came to us, "Can I have a Bible too? Can I have a Bible too?" And one man, I don't know if I put a picture of him in here, his name was Will. He was a painter in Rica, and he was just in tears and said that I've lost everything because of my sin. And he was asking about the gospel and asking about what it means and wanted a Bible. But we are praying, and you can pray with us, for fruit, long-lasting fruit from this project of Bible distribution and evangelism. Also in May, we were able to go to the southern part of the country. So we went to a town, I know it's a mouthful, but it's Peterson, which is someone in Costa Rican history a name. The town, the area, it's really 4 cities made up together, and Peterson is just like a county, basically, in this area. On the map, it says 6 hours, okay? It took us 10 to get there. So it was also May, rainy season started. We had the first rain since November, and what happens is a sinkhole opens up on the National Highway. And so we had to divert, and we ended up going to another area first to visit with a Bible study, which I'll mention in just a moment. But I want you to be praying for this group here in Peterson. There's a group of roughly 29 individuals, counting children, 20 committed adults who are desirous to see a Reformed Baptist church planted in this area. This is where they are meeting. This is the Costa Rican version of the Barn Dominion. But it's a really nice setup that they have. No air conditioning, which was a little challenging, but they still persevere and are thankful for this. Now, I don't know if you can see well, but this lady here in this floral dress or floral shirt that she has on, her name is Jennifer. And when we lived here at the Mexican restaurant in Waynesboro, we met her. And she was from this area. And so when we were coming there to visit, I told Courtney, send her a message, invite her to come to church, and she came. And so it was really encouraging. She has moved back to Costa Rica. She said she didn't want to continue in the States, wanted to return. She's a kindergarten teacher. And in the Lord's providence, the brother who's leading this work went to high school with her. So it's just a very interesting and neat providential connection. So pray for her. She heard the gospel, obviously, when I was there. And pray, as I'll show you in just a moment, for Brother Michael Arbustini, who's right here. He is desirous for the ministry, and this is a church plant that's overseen by Pastor Alex in the church in San Jose. And so they're evaluating our brother, assessing him, whether he would be qualified and called and gifted of God to be a pastor. And they're also praying that the Lord would constitute this group into a church. And so we were very encouraged and thankful. This was also, if you read any of the signal updates, this is where we went over the Hill of Death, 11,000 feet. And so we had to cross over. We crossed over at night, and it was 48 degrees. This is a record for us in Costa Rica that we've ever felt. But the next day we went back to the top of the mountain to explore a little bit and see. And this is one of our deacons in Liredia, Hernan, and this is Raquel and their children. And so we made a good missionary team going to the southern part of the country to visit. And I just want to mention how much perseverance both of them gave this week, that week that we went down there. The first thing happened was Raquel had to have her appendix removed. And so we thought, for sure, she's not going to come down. But Courtney took a meal tour in the hospital, and she said, I'm going. I'm resolved. I'm going. And we said, are you sure, sister? Yeah, I'm fine. And then, so they set out the night before. They're driving down to the capital area, and their car breaks down. And they have to drive all the way back at 2 in the morning to the area, get a rental car the next day. But they persevered. And we were thankful just for the effort and the encouragement that they brought to the brothers and sisters there at the church plant in Peterson. And so, by God's grace, pray for that work, that it would continue, and that the Lord would be pleased to establish a new lampstand of Christ in that southern part of the country. That would be the southernmost Reformed Baptist church in the country itself. And so, one other thing I want to mention. So, we're now in an area called Cartago. It's the old capital of Costa Rica. This is where another Bible study, hopeful church plant is taking place. They're currently meeting in a home of one of their deacons at the Church of San Jose. This is also another church plant, a work overseen by Pastor Alex, as you can see there, in the church at San Jose. And so we were able to visit with them Thursday night before we went down to the southern part of the country. So pray for them as well. I think there's 10 or so members from the church in San Jose who are traveling from Cartago. And I mean, it's probably 20, 30 miles most. But when there's traffic, it takes them 2 hours to get there. On the Lord's Day, thankfully, there's only 30 minutes usually for what it takes them. But they're praying that the Lord would be pleased to raise up a church here in Cartago. It is probably the most Catholic area of Costa Rica. Some say 95% identify as Roman Catholic. This is where the pilgrimages happen. All the alleged apparitions of the Virgin happen. And so it's a very difficult soil. And it's where everyone goes in Costa Rica to continue in their idolatry. And so pray for this work. Pray for the brethren there. We probably had 15 to 20 that night. They said there were a few that were missing. But it was a wonderful opportunity to visit with the brethren there and to encourage them and to call them to press on. Also, I think 3 weeks ago now, I think this was 14th of June, whenever that was. I'm losing track of my date. So 2 weeks ago, a new church plant overseen by Los Lagos began having Lord's Day services. And so you can pray for them. They're in a town called Puriscal, and you can see their location a little west of San Jose in that area. But again, Los Lagos is having space issues. They're 150 plus members. They don't have any more room. And they've planted twice already, sending out 30 or so in each direction to plant. And now there's another group in this town called Puriscal. And they're praying that the Lord would be pleased to raise up another church and to bless those efforts of church planting. And so what I'm going to say now, and I'll return to it, but we need your prayers that you would join to pray for laborers to be raised up, to be pastors in these various church plants in these areas where there is such a great need. Let me shift back now, just for a moment, in just a few minutes left, kind of the returning back to our church in Liredia and really what the Lord has set before us as pastors. Pastor Adrian and I have had the joy of laboring together. Now, I'm not normally this tall, so I'm standing up on the platform. Adrian's about 6'5", and so, but it has been a delight for us to labor together and to have 2 full-time elders at this church. That has been a tremendous blessing for us. And the Lord has continued to send us visitors. And so this was a Lord's Day sometime in the last months. But I want to mention a few things to be praying for, to give you an update about our own church and what the Lord is doing there. Visitors, as I said, many visitors have been coming and from many different directions. And so we need wisdom, knowing how to minister well to these who profess the name of Christ, who do not have any other options of churches to attend in their areas. You can see, this is a map, and look at each of these pins. This is where we have individuals coming from who are regular coming. Some are members, some are just regular attenders. But from the far south, about a month ago, a couple got up at 5:30 in the morning because they said there's no healthy churches in our area, and we found you online. and they've been coming consistently, as far as I know. But each of these pens is at least 1 hour in distance away from the church. And there are no healthy churches to our knowledge in these areas. There may be one close to here, this Tamarindo, that we know of, but definitely no other Reformed churches other than Bagaces and us, and this is the province of Guanacaste. So we need wisdom on what the Lord would have us to do, and we're thinking even in terms of beginning a Bible study with the hopes of seeing a church plant in various areas. Going back to this pen, right here in Ojancha is where Brother Ezram lives. And so they travel 2 hours plus one way every Lord's Day with a young 3-year-old, stay for the evening service, and then return late at night. It's commendable, and it's a wonderful testimony, as I encourage them many times. But the difficulty is there is not meaningful fellowship and communion throughout the week. It's really based on the Lord's Day. And so that's a challenge for them and a struggle. But we're praying, Lord, would you give us providential clarity about where we could begin a Bible study with the hopes of seeing a new church planted and established, because we see it now as a stewardship. We have 2 full-time elders. We believe that we have the ability to begin something, but we obviously want to pray that the Lord would save souls, and so make it more of an evangelistic Bible study with the hopes of seeing it turned into a church plant. So pray for us with regard to the visitors. We also have about 8 to 10, depending on how they finish the process of becoming members. 8 to 10 who are now applying to become members, writing their testimonies. And so it's very encouraging times for us. We're 27 members right now. I don't know if I said that. But pray, Lord, would give us wisdom as elders as we navigate and have those membership interviews, but also that the Lord would keep us united. And I know it's very important here to be united as a church, and we want to maintain that unity. And so if the Lord would be pleased to add those 8 to 10 members, but these are individuals who are coming from various places and areas. Pray also as we have begun our pastoral oversight meetings. And I hope that you would say here that they are a blessing for you, but it has been a blessing for us. And this is the first time the church has had something like that. And so we began a few months ago, and Pastor Adrian's waiting on me to return so we can continue them. But it has just been a source of joy and encouragement for our souls and also for the brothers and sisters. And then, as I mentioned, the church planting aspect, we just need wisdom on church plants and returning back to our map of where the Lord would have us to focus. Now, here in the north, close to Nicaragua, the furthest right pin up there at the top, there's a family. Her sister Delsa is her name. She's a member of the church. Her 3 adult children are attending, applying for membership, and so they come an hour and a half away. And so we have a lot of folks in different directions. So please pray for us that the Lord would give us wisdom related to that. Now, returning to some of the themes of what we are sent to do, training men for ministry. I just want to briefly give you a little update. We're still continuing to work with Josi and Ezram, who are gifted brothers. Josi is also a deacon, but they're regularly preaching, and we're just asking Lord for wisdom and direction as we meet with them and assessing whether these men are called and gifted of God. I'll tell you, and Josi wouldn't mind me telling you, he doesn't believe he's called to be a pastor. He is content serving in the diaconate and serving as a gifted brother, but he has been a tremendous blessing. But Ezram does believe he does have that call, and so just pray for these men as they have young children, full-time jobs, other responsibilities and duties of the church, and at the same time preparing to preach and consider whether or not ministry is in the future for them. We're going to start going through Pastor Martin's Pastoral Theology, which was Volume 1 was recently translated into Spanish. So we're very thankful for that. So pray for those men, and in that same theme of raising up, praying for laborers to be raised up to be sent into the harvest. And finally, here's a better picture, returning to the Bible distribution and evangelism. And as a matter of encouragement to you guys too, I know efforts are being made to get into the community to share the gospel. And so just to encourage you guys to press on and to be involved in that. But we need your prayers for this, prayers for fruit, prayers for the logistics of the Bibles, getting there to Costa Rica. And here's just a few snapshots of our time together and going door to door. And the difference that I know is different here versus there is, and people don't mind if you knock on their doors. And they're willing to have conversations and talk with you. And so it's been proved to be pretty fruitful. In all of our interactions, I've been denied one time. Somebody said no thank you, and they're still very polite about it. But overall, people are willing to talk about religion and the things of God. But when you get on the topic of Mary, that's where they turn very quickly, their disposition. And so we try to press the gospel. Obviously, Roman Catholicism emphasizes there of I can save myself by my works and what I do, and so that mentality is very prevalent, and so it's been a wonderful, though, blessing and opportunity. This is the supermarket I told you we were at, talking with a few individuals, and they just came one after another asking for Bibles, and so we were thankful, though, for the opportunity to distribute 21 that day. And this is, I do have a picture of him. This is Will that I was telling you about. So pray for Will. Pray the Lord would save him. Pray, and this is one matter of prayer that's very unique, probably in other countries, but especially to us. People are very agreeable, okay? But they agree with you in the sense of that's nice, but there is no desire or no impulse to change. So that's nice, that's lovely, I like what you're saying, but they don't feel compelled to change their lives based on that. So it's a unique aspect. You don't meet direct hostility many times. It's more of that's great, I'm so glad it works for you, because the Costa Rican doesn't want to offend anyone. And so they don't want to say anything that would cause anyone to feel uncomfortable, including when they disagree with you. And it's kind of like the South too, and passive-aggressive, beat around the bush. And so just pray that the Lord would penetrate these hearts and put within them a zeal and desire to repent of their sins and trust in Christ, and that there would be true fruit that comes. And we're not just asking that they would come to church, but that the Lord would save these who are hearing the gospel. And we need your prayers, because we need perseverance as a church to continue this project of 20,000 homes, sharing Bibles and the message of the gospel. And so I want to leave you just a few prayer points. And we have some time for questions, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Same themes. I think I've mentioned most of these. Pray with us for laborers to be raised up, more open doors to plant churches. We do give God thanks for our adjustment and just how well it has gone. We have passed that transition process, and we're thankful for that. Pray for our oversight meetings, fruit in our evangelism, for the continued unity and the growth of the church, and upcoming events. One that I'll mention really briefly in less than a month, right? Yes, 2 weeks. Emmanuel Baptist Church of Coconut Creek, Florida, sending a group of 11 youth and 5 adults to come down. We're going to do kids camp, which is basically VBS, but we want to include the families. They're going to do 6 gospel messages. And so pray for that, and that there would be fruit as well. It would be many families from churches, but also reaching out to those in our town and area. So it is the idea of being evangelistic, but also having a time of that. So pray for our upcoming events. And we do have a group of some young men that are going to visit us in August, Lord willing. So you can pray for those trips. And then, of course, continued for prayers for our family, our learning the Spanish language, and that the Lord would be kind and gracious. I find it's more difficult to speak English now for me, so that's a good sign. So I apologize today for my challenges with the language, but you can continue to pray for us, and we know you do, and we're thankful for it, and we do love each of you and are thankful for the Lord's work here. So we have just a few moments if there are any questions. I know that was a lot of information. There won't be any quizzes, so don't worry. But are there any questions related to anything in the presentation or anything in the work in Costa Rica? It doesn't even have to be something I mentioned. Yes?
How many people are coming to the kids' camp, and how many of them are in your church versus outside?
Yes, we're estimating 50 to 70. So there's a lot of last minute. So we've got around 40 or so that we think are committed right now, but we can anticipate up to 70. There will be probably, that's counting adults too, adults and children that are coming. There will probably be, Courtney can help me here, 20 from our church. Probably 20 or so, 25, depending. We'll have several that will come that don't have kids but are helping with the kids camp and whatnot. So, yes. Sorry, brother.
Do you find yourself becoming more comfortable with the Spanish language with biblical terms?
Yes. Yeah, by God's grace, yes. And just saying things, certain ways. The brethren say that I'm often very direct, and that's often just because sometimes I don't know how else to say it, but very direct. But I am very thankful, and I do sense an ability to communicate better. And even I'm struggling being back in the States preaching in English because my mind's going in Spanish. And so I'm having to mini translate my mind as I'm preaching. But yes, theological terms, absolutely. But it's also the people that we meet, they don't have a lot of theological knowledge. And so even terms, if you're interacting with somebody on the street, they're not going to understand. Even Roman Catholic terms, it's new to them. They haven't heard. You just trust the priest, and we'll tell you what to believe. And so that's what they've grown up. And so, but yes, to answer your question, I really felt the Lord's help. Even in preaching, felt a little bit more liberty and not so tied to my notes and just trying to pronounce it exactly right. Now, of course, the kids will start laughing when I say something, and I've known I messed up, but I really do sense that I've gotten comfortable again in Spanish preaching. So yeah.
Brother, would you speak a little bit more to you mentioned with Adrian, just serving with him, but how is that going, the kind of the balance, and then how the folks responded to that?
Yes, yeah, it's been really well. There were more questions, I think, from the members of just how is this practically going to work? What does this look like now? Just being accustomed to having one pastor, and not that there was any opposition towards it. And so it's been really good. They've been very thankful for it and seen the blessings and the benefits, the things that we've been able to do as well, things that perhaps him being a sole elder, on the to-do list but never got to it, just out of priorities, we've been able to tackle some of those things. Pastoral oversight meetings is one. They just haven't been done before that. But the Lord has given us a unity, him and I, and we're very thankful just to be laboring together. It's a learning experience for all of us, and even in the eldership, you've got to learn one another and the different nuances, but kind of how we're dividing it right now, and practically what we're doing is we'll take turns preaching. One will be in the morning, one will be in the evening, and we'll do that for 3 months, and every 3 months we'll rotate, so we'll go back and forth. And then every month, one of us will be teaching Sunday school, and the other will be doing the meditation for prayer meeting, and so we rotate every month, if that's clear. And so we're just sharing the load and able to do that and divide it up well. But him and I just have been really convicted of that we need to begin attempting something nonetheless, either evangelistically or church plant-wise, now that we do have 2 full-time elders. And so that's what we're praying for. But to answer your question, Pastor Greg, the Lord has given us tremendous unity. We made some small changes that we've been 100% on board with and in agreement with. And recently, just to give you an example of this, that's something we both have agreed on, but he kind of wanted to wait till I arrived, was we're going to start taking up offerings in our corporate worship, as we believe is a part of corporate worship. In the past, there was a box of offerings that was given, but just at the end of the service. And so that's something that we taught on. We went to each of the families and asked if there were any biblical objections to that. And it's been very fruitful. But that's just one example of things that we have sought to implement and change. But overall, the Lord has been very kind to us in that. And the brethren are very thankful, and they constantly express their gratitude of having 2 elders watching out for their souls. So yes.
We've got to finish up here in a minute. I'm going to ask you to speak to Courtney, just how things going in the home, and also how things going with her. I know the answers to these questions we talked about earlier, but just share with that, and then how things going with her,
yes.
Kind of with the ladies at the church and things like that.
Yes. By God's grace, very well. The Lord is sustaining us, and homeschooling is going well. Children are doing well. They're growing, adjusting, adapting, and it's really encouraging, even with the kids especially, to see them. One day you'll think, okay, I don't know if I really see much progress in their language, and then all of a sudden it changes, and they're speaking sentences, they're doing everything, interacting with people, and so that's been wonderful. And children have adjusted well, and I think they'll tell you. You can ask them after if they miss Costa Rica or not. But the Lord has been kind there, and I will speak just as observing my wife and with the ladies, just her ability now to communicate at 100% level and to be able to interact with the ladies has been a tremendous blessing for her soul and also for the other ladies. Before we struggled, both of us struggled with language interacting, and it was very hard. You have your translator out trying to say something, and then the conversation would go another direction, so you get lost. But now the Lord has helped her tremendously. And over, the brothers and sisters say just how much Courtney has grown in her Spanish, more than any of us. And so that has been a tremendous blessing and connection. We do have some more ladies in the church and young families than when we lived there prior, and also more children. And so that has been great and a blessing for us personally and also for the congregation. So, if you want to add anything, but the Lord has helped us, and He has answered those prayers and even those concerns that we had, and just things that were front and center of our heart of that adjustment in that period. And we've cultivated really meaningful and new relationships that we weren't expecting, just because they were new folks to the church, and getting to know them and spend time with them as a family. So I think that's it. You can ask Courtney more after, anybody wants to. Pastor Greg knows, so the rest of you can. Right. Well, let me conclude in prayer. Thank you for this opportunity. And it's a joy for us to be here with you. And please, if you have any other questions, let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. But let's pray now.